Okay.
Too much going on to concentrate on the card.
There's two parts of this game.
I know. Yeah, really. Every time I say that, I get spanked. Yeah.
There's two parts of this game over which you have some control. Discarding and pegging. Now, we'll get to the point where you have some control in terms of how you interpret position, too. But these first ingredients here are things over which you exercise control. The cards that leave your hand when you're discarding, that's a decision you make. And hopefully it was a decision based on some knowledge rather than hunches. I know there are people who play this game that have a great time and once in a while have some great results. They play hunches only. But I guarantee you that you'll do much better when you forget the hunches and play the numbers. It'll make a big difference in your game. And you'll still have friends. Some people say, well, it's just a social outing. I really like the people. The people will like you just as much if you beat their ass every week. They'll like you just as much. It's just what is. We're attracted by this game and the camaraderie that goes with this wonderful game of cribbage builds some of the strongest friendships that exist anywhere on the planet Earth. So they'll accept you as a winner. They'll, what is the word? Show empathy when you're a loser. Empathy. Not quite as bad as sympathy, but still pretty close. Now, the deuce tray and the 1-4 are common little 5-point couplets that we end up with in our hand. And the thinking in each case, I want my opponent, if he has 10-point cards, to put a 10-point card on my 3 lead or a 10-point card on my 4 lead. Now, what happens when you decide to get cute? And instead of playing the 3, which forces my 5 off the play, you lead the deuce. What do? I put my 5 on your darn deuce. And what happens to you? You lead the 3 or the 4. It forces the 5 off the play and increases the chances I'll make the count 13 or 14. Now, I'll talk about a hand later, which has a 1 and a 4, where we lead the 1, and I'll explain the reason for that. But as a rule, if you're playing 1-4, 2-3 with 2 10-pointers, you want to force the 5 off the play and increase the chances you'll get the card that you want a 10 spot played on the 3 or the 4. Don't let me wiggle away by playing the 1 or the deuce. In either case, I can drop my 5 and you don't get diddly. So, force the 5 off the play lots of times. Remember that 5 with 3 10-point cards is a very common hand. If you force my 5 off the play, I'm going to have to make the count 14 or 13 a whole lot of the time. Very common hand. You're talking between 33 and 40% of the hands are going to include some form of a 5 with a 10-point card. So that's what we got here. 1-4, 2-3 forces the 5 off the play. You'll see as we get into other pegging that there are other ways we play to force certain cards off the play. We want certain cards not to be in play. We'd like to catch them later. But here, we're wanting to get a 15. We might as well. We got the nickel, a 1-4, a 2-3. We got the nickel. Why not entice a 10? And you do that by playing the 4 or the 3. Most players are not going to put a 5, definitely not on your 4 lead, and most of them aren't going to put a 5 on your 3 lead. They're going to make the count what you want it to make it. Go for it. If you have a hand such as these, there's a paragraph here on your paper, it makes sense to lead from the strength. But I want to show you there's a difference in where the strength is. If you're holding 2, 3, 3, 4, then leading from the 3 makes a lot of sense. You still got 3 cards in sequence. If I decide to pair it, you can take the triple if you like. There might be some place on the board you might skip it, because I might have the 4th one for 12 and would settle the game on the fourth one. So, but lead from the strength when you have hand like this. Now the problem here with this last one, you see these are 3, 3, 4, 2 4s in the middle, 2 8s on the end. Why is leading from a pair of 8s better than leading from a pair of 7s?
Because you can't get one of these.
Yeah, only one time in all the time I've played cribbage, and that was at Reno. I saw somebody play the 4th 8 for 31 and 31 for 14. That's hard to do.
I'd like to do that to me.
But that's the same argument with the 6s and 9s, by the way. If you've got 6s and 9s, we'll get there. But the 6 can get you in trouble, but the 9, worst can happen on the 9 is we end up with 3 of them at 27. But be kind of leery of somebody if they take 31 for 13 with the 4th 8. I mean, you might want to review the times tables. 4 times 8, 32.
That's right.
There it is. 32. Now this last one here, you know, I say lead from the strength. That's the thing with this game. You see, you have all these exceptions. Here, the correct lead is the 8. If you lead the 6,
Put a 9.
I probably put a 9 on it for 15. Then where do you go? Do you make the count 21 with the other 6? Or do you play the 7 or 8? See? So, those are tricky. The strength on that hand is the 8, not the pair. And here we got a 1, 1, 4 queen. Most of the time, I'm going to talk about later when we get into some trap plays, most of the time we're going to lead the 4 from that hand for the same reason we talked about up here. Now, there's another way to play it, but not for this purpose. This is basic pegging. Our next session is going to be pegging traps and advanced pegging. And so you're going to find some of these hands that I'm showing here are going to show up in a way that can be a trick, a little pegging trap. Six, 9 couplet. If you got just a 6 and a 9, what's the better lead?
6.
6, exactly. If you lead the 9, and I see people do it all the time, I mean, if they got a 6, they make 15, and then you've got to pair the 6 for 21. Much better to play the 6 and get the count at 15 with a 9 spot if they've got it. Now, there is a time in the pegging game, most people consider the 9, a single 9, to be the poorest lead in cribbage, single 9. So generally, if you lead a 9, it's because you've got 2. You've got 9, 9, 10, jack. Or some other arrangement that you've got 2 9s. And that's how it should be. If you lead it singly, it doesn't work very well. There's another reason, though. In a very close game, maybe you just kept enough to get out, and your opponent needs only 3 or 4 pegs to win, and you kept a 9, 10, jack, queen, 4 points. You need 3 to win. The 9 there would be the correct lead, because The others encourage a 5 response. And you can slip the 9 through without getting 15 most of the time. Whereas if you lead the 10 Jack Queen and the dealer was Delta 5, the dealer will get 15 too. And that might very well put the game in the dealer's win column. So there is a time to lead a lone 9, but be cautious about it. And it is a purpose. I mean, you've had this thought. You've thought this through a little bit. That might be a better way to approach than to lead either the 10 Jack or the Queen in some situations. Very important, remember I mentioned that the dealer has a huge advantage in pegging. Even a poor dealer averages 3.6 pegs on the deal. Even a poor pegger. A good one is closer to 4. Most people who've played this game for a while come in around 3.8. If you're looking at the non-dealer, very strong non-dealer who can peg 2.0. Very strong non-dealer who can peg 2.0 on average. Most are in the 1.6 to 1.8 range. So the dealer's advantage is 2 to 1. And fortunately, a lot of the players that play this game are not very observant. But a dealer who is observant, he notices or she notices the first card that's played and starts reading the hand based on the first card that's laid on the table. If you show me a 3, I have some thoughts about the most common hands that go with the 3. You might too. If you lead a Jack, what does it tell me about your hand? Probably don't have a deuce 3. Probably don't have a 1-4. You probably sooner do that than show me a face card. So probably you either got a double run of face cards or you got a 5, 1 or more 5s with 10 pointers. So it goes. And we'll get into, when we get into a little further into pegging, we'll be talking about sleeper cards and enticed play. Some of the ways those can come into bearing. Anyway, because you know the dealer has this great advantage in pegging, and when you're non-dealing, you want to try to plan the pegging game so you could stay even with the dealer. And that's one of the arguments for leading a 3 if you're holding a 9. If he pairs, you're even. A 4 with a 7, he pairs your 4, the pegging's even. Many times that's a good strategy, is to stay even with the dealer. Now the dealer is going to get 1. Dealer is guaranteed 1 peg. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the cards look like. Well, it could. I saw a game in Reno. This is where all the crazy things happen, I'm sorry. Sorry, Reno. This guy threw his hand down. He had 2 7s and 2 8s. He dropped it on the table and played a 10 king. He didn't realize he had a problem till he got to his final card. I mean, he's got 2 cards in front of him, and he doesn't recognize the problem until he plays the last one, and he's only played 1 before it. Well, you don't get a peg if you're only playing 2 cards. He didn't get a peg. He's not guaranteed a peg if he plays 2 cards. And of course, you know the cut was a 6, and you know what his opponent threw the crib on top of his 4. I mean, there was 149 in the crib if he could have figured out a way to count them all. But the crib is dead. He doesn't get the peg, and he can count his hand. So you know where that game went. Out the window. So be sure you play 4 if you want the guaranteed peg. Because if you play less than 4, you might not get it. Shoot for the 31 target. A 3-3-5 with a face card is a very common hold. You see where that was going to end up? If you laid the 3, if you get a 13, then you would make the count 16. The 3 was safe the first time, wasn't it? Show them the same card a second time. So you're at 16, the count is likely to go to 26, and you get your 5 in for 31. Even though a lone 5 sometimes can be a liability, because you've got this nice little magic 3-card 11. We're going to talk about these 11s and who they benefit. But 3-card 11s are great for the non-dealer. And we're looking at one of them there. 3-3-5, 1-1-9, deuce 7, 4-4-3, 5-5-1. Can there be any more? If you get to the 6s, it won't work. Okay, so they're magical little combinations. In hands that include 10s, they'll work almost 100% to do just that. And you close the count at 31 with your 5, and that's a good thing to do with a 5 slot. When you can put it out of play and score 2 points with it, that's a good thing to do. Now you jump over, you've got a paper back there called 4-4. Kind of an interesting paper. Some of it comes from some of the research I did, and also John Chambers in his book has some charts on what the initial lead is and what constitutes the best response. If you have 2 or more small cards, they're not particularly dangerous. If you have 1 small card, you need to start thinking, I wonder where the rest of these small cards are. Because very often they're in your opponent's hand. And so if you've got 1 small card, not an ace, but anything bigger than an ace with 3 10-pointers, which is very common, deuce, jack, queen, king, 3, jack, queen, king, 4, jack, queen, king, lead the small one. Be rid of it. Gives you a chance to pair one of those 10-pointers. So you got 3 possible cards you could pair. And you eliminate the risk. Anyway, if you look at this paper, two, 3, 4 with 3 10-pointers. I see this every week in cribbage. I see it every week where somebody has a chance to hold a 2, 3, 4 with 3 10-pointers. And instead they hold the ace. The only person who should ever hold the ace with 10-pointers is the dealer. The ace is an absolute liability if you're the non-dealer. You can't play it. If you do, you're going to give up some 31s for 8 and 31s for 5 till you're blue in the face, and then maybe you'll get the drift. if you've got a 1 with 3 10-pointers, you've got to lead the 10-pointer and then drop the ace the next card played. So, watch those. 3 and 4. Generally, they're considered the best possible leads in cribbage. A 4, if you think about it, a 4 forces a lot of cards off the play. In other words, if I lead a 4, I probably, if you got a 3, you're probably not going to play it. If you got a deuce, you're probably not going to play it. You're certainly not going to play a 1 on my 4 lead for 5. You're not going to play a 5. I force a 6 off the lead. You might put the 7 thinking, well, he's played 1-4, so maybe that's 11 is a pretty good count. It kind of forces the 8 off the play, because if he's got a 4, probably got a 3, right? 4 make the count 12 on a 4 lead with an 8 spot. So the best response to a 4 is a 9. And a 4 is led if you've got a 9 in your hand, and 9 is the best response there is in the deck. But you force the 10 Jack Queen King off. See, it's very important when you can force the dealer to give up cards that he doesn't necessarily want to give up. And so the 4 forces more cards off the play than any other card you could put out there, even though it's single. And very often it will be single, and so the 4 is a little safer to pair than our other offerings. Many of the other cards are generally offered from a pair, just like we talked leading from the strength. But a 4 will often be led as a single. And so if you think you really got to have pairs, it's safer to pair the 4 than it is to pair other cards. 5 is not a popular lead. One of the books that I have on the shelf in my office says anybody who leads a 5 is an idiot. I never said that because I lead 5s frequently. I don't know. I probably don't. I don't have my cribbage prof shirt on tonight, but I probably don't quite lead it as often as does Hal or Rex or Cribbage Prof. Those cribbots, I call them cribbots, robots, cribbots. That's the word I coined, cribbot, C-R-I-B-B-O-T. Those cribbots lead a 5 from 4, 5, 5, 6. I always lead to 4. And I often get my 5 in for 29 for 6. So I like it that way. I like to play the 4. But those cribbots lead to 5. That leaves up 3 cards in sequence. Whereas if I lead to 4, I only got 2 cards in sequence. Anyway, it's an interesting thing. Don't be fearful of leading to 5. And especially when you see two middle cards on the table, and you've got a choice to play a 5, well, throw it out there. Because if you don't, down comes a 6, 7, and your opponent takes 3, and a go is 4. Almost predictable. And we'll show you, when we get into traps, I'll show you some really nice traps that the dealer can pull real frequently. Really innocuous looking hands, not particularly frightening, not particularly shocking, and not particularly uncommon. The 6 is preferred to the single 9. If you've got a single 6 and a single 9, 6 is the preferable lead. And the 7 and the 8, we already mentioned. If you've got the choice, lead the 8. If dealer has middle cards, and all you got is middle cards, the dealer will end up with a pegging advantage. If the dealer doesn't have middle cards, you escape. You might, if they got small cards, you might pick up a 15 or something. But middle cards, if both players have middle cards, because the dealer plays the last one, and you, the non-dealer, plays the first one, the dealer will be the winner in the pegging contest if there are middle cards in both hands. And I've already said pretty much about the 9. But if you don't have a 3 or a 4, a 10 is not a bad lead. The worst thing that happens with a 10 is you give up a 15. So don't say, some people say, oh, I hate to lead a 10. Actually, 10, Jack, Queen, King. Now there's a difference in those. And I'm going to show its chart in here before we get too much further along. What 10-point card is the dealer least likely to have in their hand? Jack. Why is that? Yeah, exactly. If you look at the dealer, lots of times will have a 6, 7, 8 with a king because he put the Jack, Queen, or the 10, Jack, or a pair of jacks in the crib. You think, why? People lead the king all the time thinking the dealer wouldn't hold a king. The king is the most likely 10-point card the dealer will keep. Because the Jack, Queen, the 10, Jack, a pair of queens, a pair of jacks, a pair of 10s are all better than, all better. So very often, 2, 3, 4, king, and the Jack, Queen is in the crib. 2, 3, 4, king, and the 10, Jack is in the crib. So that is repeatedly done over and over and over and over. And so you're less likely, if you have to lead a 10-point card, you're less likely to get a jack pair than you would to get a king pair. When you lead a king, it should be from a pair, because that allows you to pick off this little strange king that the dealer kept with 2 6s and a 9 when he pitched the Jack, Queen to the crib. And that happens frequently. If you plan, I mean, don't throw away a good hand to keep a pair of kings. But if that's the hand you got, king, king, 1, 4, go for it. Give it a try. And you see, we mentioned the 1, 4, king, king. We mentioned leading the 4. We might be in a position where 2 pegs don't interest me. And you see, with the king possibility, with a pair of kings, I could get 30 for 6 and a go, my ace for 31. So I could get 8 pegs rather than that 15 that I'd have got had I played it the other way. So sometimes it's worth trying some of these little mechanisms and seeing if we can't pick up the card we're looking for. Put some pegs on the board. By the way, people who peg well, they have 3 pegging styles. We're going to talk about that quite a lot as we get into advanced pegging. When you pick up your cards, you should look at the pegs. And do I need to play offense or defense? Do I need to go for distance, or do I need to protect my advantage? I make that decision, and that guides my discard. If I'm playing defense, I'm going to try to keep the crib score low. And I'm going to try to present my cards in a way that I don't give up pegs. If I've decided that defense is what I'm going to do. If I'm going for offense, then I'm going to keep my best score in hand, the best potential for a hand increase in cut cards that are available. And I'm going to go for some pegs because I don't like where I am on the board. I want to improve my position. I might have to do that 3 or 4 hands in a row. Sometimes you get in a game and you got to play defense for 3 or 4 hands in a row before you really make up the ground you need to. Or you need to play offense for 3 or 4 hands in a row to get there. Go for it. there any questions about that? Now, that's just a summary on all the possible cards you could lead. And this next part to that is what are the best responses to those kinds of leads? Now, and this is probably gonna be where we'll wrap up this class tonight. If the opening lead is an ace, the best response is a 5, 9, 8, 6, or 10. And the worst response, well, you could have a pair of aces, but if we're just talking about singles, the worst response is 1, 7, 2, 3, and 4. An ace lead is generally, if it's made from a double run, it's because the person likes where they are, and they've got a 1, 1, 2, 3. It's usually an indication that they've got other small cards if they're leading an ace. Now, there is an exception or two, but often that will tell you. If a deuce is led, see 1, 2, 3, 4 are the worst responses. Well, again, we're just talking straight across the board, they're the worst responses. If you were playing on, you needed pegs, you were in the all offense mode, then you might want to play right on the deuce, right close to the deuce. But you probably wouldn't want to play a 3 or 5, because your opponent would likely escape. But you might want to put a 4 or a 1 on the deuce. So on down. And you see the long list of cards that the four lead forces off the play. The 10 is in there as the best response, but notice it's the fourth one, because if you play the 10 on it, the worst that could happen to you is 15-2, whereas some of these others could result in a run. The 5, unless it's the end of the game situation, you might as well take a 15 on a 5 lead. Now, in the end game, down there when you're in the final 10 holes, be very cautious. Play anything on a 5 lead other than a 10. Because most of the time it's put out there. The person has 9 and they need 10 or 11. And so they got 3 different 10 Jack Queen, King with a 5. They need a couple pegs. If you take the 15, they got them. So if you got another card, anything, even a 3, put it on the 5 in end game situations. You know, sometimes the best thing you can do is to put the count over 15. You know, you might have a small card, but why give your opponent a second chance to score 15? So very often, one of the best things you can do is just make the count 16, 17, get it over. Get it over 15, you've eliminated 2 points that might be scored. So you didn't score them, but you prevented them from being scored. So sometimes that's a good approach. Put the count over 15, and you're sure that those 2 points won't go into your opponent's column. A lead of a 10-point card suggests that better leads are not in the hand. If somebody leads a 10-point card, now there's a few exceptions, but they're few, very few. It's generally a sign that they don't have a better lead. Most people would prefer not to lead the 10. So they probably don't have a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, which one of those small cards, though, might they have? Yeah, that would be the one that might catch you by surprise. But if they got a 2, 3, 4 with 10-point cards, you can almost bet that the 2, 3, 4 will be led. So the one that could catch you by surprise would be the ace, because they wouldn't lead the ace if they knew what they were doing. They would play the 10th rather than the ace. I want to mention one thing here, and that's probably about what we'll get to tonight. When you see people score these 31 for 8s and 31 for 4s, they can only be done off of an odd count. They can only be scored off of an odd count. So if you concentrate on making the count even, once you get past 21, 22 is ideal, by the way. 22 is an ideal count to make. If you make the count 25 with a 3, who knows? Not a good choice. If you had a chance to make it 24 some other way, would have been much better. Now, it might not be your opponent has 2 3s, but you can bet if they do, most of the time they go 28 for 2. And you say, oh, go. 31 for 8. If it's deuces, all odd count, 27, 29, 31. Don't make the count 27 if you can avoid it. Think about making it even earlier. Now, it's still possible for you to give up the triple, but you won't give up the 31. So you still could give up the 3 deuces, but it would be for a count of 30 instead of 31. So you give up 7 instead of 8. Ideal if you don't have to give up the 7 even. But if you keep that in mind, if you keep the count even, you will drastically reduce the number of these plays for 31 for 4 or 31 for 8, because they all require an odd count. You make the count 23 with a 4. Not a good thing to do, unless you got a whole bunch of 4s. If you made the count with 23 with a 4 and you got 2 4s in your hand, that's a pretty nice play. Hope you get a goal. Yeah.
I've been in 4 different grassroots clubs, and every club I've been in has anywhere from 3 to 5 players that no matter what you lay down there, if they have it, they will perish. So in our club, I know of at least 3 of them, and no matter what pair I have, I'm taking a chance. The odds are against me, but if I lead it and they have it, they're going to bear it.
Yeah.
You know, so all this pegging is for players at equal skills, probably. But when we get a lot of new players, they just think, well, I got it, I pair it. And I've been in 4 different clubs, and every club's had at least 3 to 5 of those players that year after year, if they have it, they'll pair it.
Well,
But if
here's
you don't, then you can take advantage of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I lead from a pair against these people, where you wouldn't against somebody else.
here's what happens with a lot of them. You hear people talk, say, well, you know, if you pair everything that comes down, you'll come out ahead. Because if you think about it, how often does the person have the pair? So you'll get 2, 2, 2, 2, and then maybe 1 in 5 times they get 6. So you got 8 on 4, and they got 6 on 1. But it comes back to position. The only time you should pair, first of all, the opening lead is a biased presentation. A player is presenting the card that they think is the most favorable presentation from their hand. If they got a pair, they're leading from it. It's biased. So very often, you play off the lead. Play off the lead if you like where you are on the board. Play off the lead. only pair it when you're desperate, you're playing offense, all-out offense, you're gonna hit everything that comes down. Now, unfortunately, there's some folks who play this game a lifetime who don't have any of those aspects to their playing game. And Jim is absolutely right. There's some play that's absolutely unpredictable. And those folks often cause real frustration. If you've been to this class and you have a little added information in your arsenal, it even becomes more frustrating. So you got to talk everybody into coming to this class. No, but you know, it's a wonderful game. This cribbage game. I wanted to. My printer is haywire, and I don't know if you were on Cribbage Hand of the Day today. There was a wonderful dissertation on Sir John Suckling, the guy that invented this game. And my printer is haywire, but this guy put together quite a little summary of Sir John Suckling's life and why it was so short and how the game of cribbage came about. Very, very good dissertation. So next week we're going to get into some pegging traps, magic 11s. Some of them I want you to see dancing in your dreams in the middle of the night. Well, at my age, that's more dream than I can handle. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but you know, it's pretty exciting. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Let's have some fun and play a few games of cribbage.
Yeah.